Steve Harvey had heard thousands of marriage jokes on Family Feud. Husbands complained about shopping. Wives complained about snoring. Couples joked about money, cooking, in-laws, and who controlled the television remote. Most of the time, everyone laughed. That afternoon started the same way. The Reed family stood together under the bright studio lights. They were smiling, waving to the crowd, and trying to hide their nerves. Steve walked toward them with his cards in one hand and that familiar look on his face. "All right," he said. "Tell me who everybody is." Marcus Reed stepped forward first. "I'm Marcus. This is my beautiful wife, Denise. We've been married 23 years. The audience applauded. Steve looked impressed. 23 years? "Yes, sir." Steve turned toward Denise. 23 years with this man? Denise laughed softly. 23 long years. The audience laughed. Marcus pointed at her. "See, that's what I'm talking about." Steve smiled. "You still happy you married her?" It should have been an easy question. Marcus could have said yes. He could have made a harmless joke. Instead, he shook his head and laughed. "I love her, Steve, but knowing what I know now..." He paused. Then he said it. "Sometimes I regret marrying her." Part of the audience laughed automatically. Marcus laughed too. Steve smiled for half a second. Then he looked at Denise. She wasn't laughing. Her smile remained on her face, but something behind it disappeared. Steve noticed. Her daughter noticed. Even Marcus's 70-year-old mother, Loretta, standing at the end of the family podium, lowered her eyes. Steve slowly turned back toward Marcus. "Man." Marcus was still smiling. "I'm just being honest." Steve looked at Denise again. She nodded once. "That's okay." But the way she said it made Steve stop joking. Nobody in that studio knew yet that Denise had been hearing versions of that sentence for years. Nobody knew what she had given up to keep their marriage together. Nobody knew that she had arrived at Family Feud with a secret hidden inside her purse. And nobody knew that before the afternoon was over, Marcus would say those words one more time. Only then Denise would answer him. 6 words. Not shouted. Not angry. Not cruel. Just 6 quiet words from a woman who had spent 23 years putting everyone else first. When she said them, Steve Harvey wouldn't have a joke. For several seconds, he wouldn't have anything to say at all. Denise Reed was 45 years old. People who met her usually described her with the same words. Dependable, patient, kind. If somebody needed help, Denise was the person they called. She worked as an administrative assistant at a medical clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. She knew every nurse by name, remembered which patients needed wheelchairs, and regularly stayed after her shift when someone needed help. But working in a medical clinic had always carried a quiet pain for her. Because Denise had once planned to become a nurse. At 21, she had been accepted into nursing school. Her grades were good. She loved working with patients. Her mother, Evelyn, had been so proud that she bought Denise a simple silver watch and told her, "One day you'll wear this while you're taking care of people." Then Denise met Marcus. Marcus was 23, confident, funny, and ambitious. He was working as an HVAC technician, but he dreamed about owning his own company. He had very little money. What he did have was energy. Marcus could walk into a room and make everyone believe something good was about to happen. Denise fell in love with that. They married 2 years later. 11 months after the wedding, their daughter Maya was born. Money was tight. Very tight. Marcus was trying to build his business. Denise made a decision. She would delay nursing school for 1 year. Just 1 year. She took a full-time office job because it offered health insurance. At night, she handled Marcus's invoices. On Saturdays, she answered calls for his business while holding baby Maya against her shoulder. 1 year became 3. Then their son Jordan was born. 3 years became 7. Marcus's business began growing. Denise told herself nursing school could wait. The children needed stability. Marcus needed help. There would be time later. When Maya was 10, Marcus's father suffered a stroke. Denise spent almost a year helping care for him. She cooked meals, drove him to appointments, organized medication, and sat with him during physical therapy. When Marcus's mother needed knee surgery several years later, Denise helped again. Nobody forced her. She loved the family. That was what made the sacrifice difficult to explain. Denise had not given up her dreams because Marcus was a monster. Marcus was not a monster. He worked hard. He loved his children. He paid bills. He built Reed Heating and Air from one truck into a company with 12 employees. He rarely took vacations. He sometimes answered work calls during dinner because a customer's heating system had stopped working. Marcus believed everything he did was for his family. That was the problem. Over the years, he began believing his sacrifices were the sacrifices that mattered most. When he worked late, he was providing. When Denise worked late, she was helping out. When Marcus missed a school event because of work, everyone understood. When Denise wanted to attend an evening nursing information session, Marcus would ask who was making dinner. Little things. None seemed big enough to destroy a marriage. But marriages are not always damaged by one enormous event. Sometimes they are worn down by small moments repeated for years. Denise would say, "I've been thinking about going back to school." Marcus would answer, "Right now?" Denise would say, "Maya can drive herself now." Marcus would say, "Jordan still needs us." Denise would say, "I can take evening classes." Marcus would say, "We already barely see each other." Then Marcus would work until 9 o'clock, and Denise would put the nursing brochure back inside the kitchen drawer. Eventually, she stopped bringing it up. That silence fooled Marcus. He thought the dream had disappeared. It hadn't. Denise had simply stopped trusting him with it. Their daughter Maya understood more than either parent realized. At 21, Maya was studying psychology. One night, she came home and found her mother sitting alone at the kitchen table. There was a laptop in front of her. On the screen was an application for an accelerated nursing program. "You doing it?" Maya asked. Denise quickly closed the laptop. "I'm thinking." "You've been thinking my whole life." Denise looked down. "Your father has a lot happening with the business." Maya sighed. "Mom, Dad always has a lot happening with the business." Denise said nothing. Maya sat across from her. "When does something get to happen for you?" That question stayed with Denise. A week later, she submitted the application. She didn't tell Marcus. 3 months passed. Then an envelope arrived. She had been accepted. Classes would begin in 8 weeks. Denise read the letter 3 times. Then she cried. Not because she was sad, because after 23 years, something she thought she had lost was standing in front of her again. But there was another truth. Denise had decided that if Marcus asked her to give it up again, she wasn't going to. For the first time in their marriage, she was prepared to choose herself, even if choosing herself meant leaving him. Maya knew the marriage was in trouble. That was one reason she had submitted the Reed family for Family Feud. She hoped a few days away from work, bills, and normal life might remind her parents how much fun they used to have together. For the first hour it seemed to work. Marcus joked with everybody. Denise laughed. Loretta danced backstage. Jordan kept practicing imaginary buzzer moves. Then Steve asked one simple question. "Still happy you married her?" And Marcus answered with a sentence Denise had spent years fearing was true. "Sometimes I regret marrying her." The game hadn't even properly started, but something inside Denise had already changed. The Reeds started well. They won the opening face-off and gathered around the board. Steve read the question. "We asked 100 married people, name something your spouse wants more of." Marcus hit the buzzer. "Money." The board showed it. Number 4. The audience applauded. Steve walked to Denise. "What do you think?" Denise thought for a moment. "Attention," the board rang. Number 2. Steve nodded. "That's a good answer." Then he moved to Maya. "Respect," the board exploded. Number 1 answer. Steve turned toward the family. "Respect." The crowd applauded. Marcus laughed. "See, I'm very respectful." Maya stared at him. Denise looked down. Steve caught the exchange. He didn't say anything. Not yet. The Reed family won the round. During the next question, Marcus was back to his usual self. Steve asked, "Name something a married person secretly misses about being single." Marcus hit the buzzer almost immediately. Freedom. The answer appeared. Number 1. The audience roared. Marcus raised both hands like he had won a championship. I knew it. Steve bent over laughing. Then he looked at Denise. Miss Denise, your husband was a little too fast with that answer. Marcus laughed harder. Denise gave a small smile. He's been practicing that answer for 23 years. The audience laughed again. But Steve noticed the difference. The first time, Denise had tried to protect Marcus from embarrassment. This time, she didn't. The game continued. The other families stole the round. During the commercial break, the stage became quieter. Crew members moved equipment. Steve walked away to speak with a producer. Marcus leaned toward his younger brother Kevin. You know what I'm saying, though. Marriage changes everything. Kevin gave him an uncomfortable smile. Man, Denise is standing right there. I'm not saying I don't love her. Denise heard him. Marcus continued. I'm just saying I spent 23 years carrying everybody. Sometimes you wonder what life would have looked like if you had only yourself to worry about. Denise turned. You were carrying everybody? Marcus realized she had heard him. Come on, Denise, no, I'm asking. This isn't the place. You said it here. Marcus lowered his voice. I didn't mean anything by it. You said you've spent 23 years carrying everybody. Because I have. Denise stared at him. Behind them, Maya became still. Jordan looked away. Marcus continued. Who built the company? Who made sure the mortgage got paid? Who worked 60-hour weeks? Denise nodded slowly. You did. Exactly, and who stayed home when Maya was sick? Marcus sighed. Denise, who left work every Tuesday for 6 months to take your father to physical therapy? That's not what I'm talking about. Who did your payroll when we couldn't afford office staff? I know you helped. The word hit her immediately. Helped? Denise almost laughed. Helped? Marcus rubbed his forehead. Why are you turning this into something? I'm not. She looked him directly in the eye. I'm finally telling you what it already is. Before Marcus could respond, a producer called them back into position. The cameras were about to start again. They stood side by side. But they were no longer together. Steve returned. He looked at Denise. Then, Marcus. Years of hosting had taught him how to read people quickly. Something had happened. He didn't ask. The next question appeared. Name something a parent might give up for their children. Maya reached the buzzer first. Sleep, number 3. Jordan answered next. Money, number 2. Then Steve walked to Denise. She was silent longer than usual. Miss Denise? She looked at the board. A career. The bell sounded. Number 1. The audience applauded. Denise didn't. Steve looked at her. That answer came from somewhere. Denise smiled. It came from life. Marcus shifted beside her. Steve could have moved on. Normally he would have, but something about Denise's expression made him stay. You give up a career? Denise took a breath. A long time ago. What did you want to do? Become a nurse. Steve's expression changed. You wanted to be a nurse? Since I was a teenager. What happened? Denise glanced toward her children. Life happened. Marcus interrupted. We had kids young. Denise nodded. We did. We made that decision together. Again, Denise nodded. At first, Steve looked between them. Marcus suddenly seemed defensive. Denise seemed exhausted. The audience had become quieter. Steve asked, You ever think about going back? Denise looked at him. Every year. Marcus turned toward her. Every year? That part was new to him. Steve saw his reaction. You didn't know that? Marcus tried to smile. I knew she talked about it sometimes. Denise looked at him. I stopped talking because every time I did, you gave me another reason to wait. The studio became completely silent. Marcus's face tightened. That's not fair. Denise didn't raise her voice. I'm not trying to be unfair. Then don't make it sound like I stopped you from living your life. Denise swallowed. For 23 years, Marcus, I built my life around everybody else's. You chose that too. Yes, she nodded. I did. That answer surprised him. Denise wasn't blaming him for every decision. That almost made what came next harder. I chose my children. I chose this family. I chose you. I don't regret loving any of you. She paused. But nobody ever asked what those choices were costing me. Marcus opened his mouth. Steve lifted one hand. Hold on. Marcus stopped. Steve stepped closer. This got bigger than the survey real quick. A nervous laugh moved through the crowd. Steve looked at Denise. You okay? I'm fine. Steve gave her the same look parents give children when they know fine doesn't mean fine. No, you're functioning. That's different. Denise's eyes filled. She blinked quickly. The audience went silent again. Then Loretta, Marcus's mother, spoke from the end of the podium. She's telling the truth. Marcus turned. Mama, Loretta shook her head. Don't mama me. Even Steve raised his eyebrows. Loretta was 70 years old and barely 5'4", but suddenly everyone on the stage was listening to her. She pointed toward Denise. When your daddy had that stroke, who changed her work hours? Marcus looked away. Denise. Who took him to therapy? Denise. Who sat in that hospital when I couldn't take seeing him like that? Marcus said nothing. Loretta continued. Your wife. Her voice cracked. I love you because you're my son. But being a good provider don't mean you're the only person who's been providing something. The audience began applauding. Marcus stared at the floor. Loretta wasn't finished. Denise gave this family time. She gave patience. She gave years. Money ain't the only thing that keeps a house standing. Steve looked toward Marcus. Your mama just preached on Family Feud. A few people laughed. The tension broke for a moment. Then the game resumed. But Marcus had become quiet. The other family won another round. Everything came down to the final face-off. Steve read the question. We asked 100 married people, name something you wish you could get back after 20 years of marriage. Marcus and Denise faced each other at the buzzer. Steve finished reading. Marcus hit first. My freedom. The audience reacted immediately. Some laughed. Others groaned. Steve closed his eyes. Marcus. The board showed the answer. Number 4. Marcus shrugged. It's up there. Denise didn't smile. The other contestant answered youth. Number 2. The Reeds got control. Maya said energy. Jordan said money. Then Steve reached Denise. One answer left. Denise stared at the board. Time. The bell sounded. Number 1. Time. 41. The audience applauded loudly. Steve turned toward Denise. You said that fast. Because that's the one thing you can't earn again. Steve lowered his cards. Marcus looked frustrated. See, now everything I say sounds bad. Denise turned toward him. Nobody is doing that to you. You are making it sound like marrying me ruined your life. I never said that. You've basically been saying it for 10 minutes. No, I've been saying I lost parts of myself. Marcus shook his head. After everything I've done for this family. Denise closed her eyes. There it was again. Everything I've done. Marcus continued. I worked myself half to death. I know. I built something for us. I know. I never cheated on you. I never abandoned my kids. I came home. I paid bills. I did what a husband was supposed to do. Denise looked at him. And I appreciate those things. Doesn't sound like it. Steve stepped between them slightly. But Marcus was embarrassed now. And embarrassed people sometimes defend themselves by saying the exact thing they should stop saying. He looked at Denise. If being married to me has been such a sacrifice, maybe I was right before. Denise's face changed. Marcus continued. Maybe I should have stayed single. Maya whispered, Dad. Marcus shook his head. I'm serious. I love her. But maybe we both would have been better off. Sometimes I really do regret marrying you. No one laughed this time. Not one person. Steve Harvey slowly lowered the card in his hand. Marcus seemed to realize what he had just done. But the sentence was already in the room. Denise stared at her husband. 23 years, 2 children, thousands of meals, hospital rooms, late bills, school concerts, business invoices. Her nursing application hidden in drawers, every maybe next year. Every time she had said it's okay when it wasn't. Marcus had just told her, in front of their children and hundreds of strangers, that he regretted marrying her. Denise could have screamed, she could have insulted him, she could have reminded everyone of every mistake he had ever made. Instead, she took one breath. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I regret losing myself for you. 6 words. Steve froze. Marcus froze. The audience froze. Denise didn't cry immediately. That made it even more painful. She simply stood there. Still, Steve stared at her. His mouth opened, then closed. For perhaps the first time all afternoon, Steve Harvey had absolutely nothing to say. 5 seconds passed, maybe 6. On television, 5 seconds of silence can feel like a minute. Steve finally exhaled. Whew, he looked down at his cards. Then he put them on the podium. We ain't worried about this survey right now. A few audience members clapped. Steve turned toward Denise. What do you mean when you say you lost yourself? Denise looked at Marcus, then at her children, then finally at Steve. I became good at being what everybody needed. Her voice trembled. A mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law, an employee, the person who remembers birthdays, the person who makes appointments, the person who knows when the electric bill is due, the person who makes sure everybody has what they need. She wiped one tear from her cheek, and somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what I needed. Marcus was no longer defensive. He was listening. Denise continued, I don't hate my marriage. She looked directly at him. I hate that I disappeared inside it. Marcus lowered his head. Steve was quiet. Then Maya began crying. I need to say something. Denise turned. Maya stepped closer to her mother. Mom didn't tell everybody, but she got accepted. Marcus looked confused. Accepted where? Denise closed her eyes briefly. Maya answered. Nursing school. Marcus stared at his wife. What? Denise reached into her purse beside the podium. She removed a folded envelope. I got the letter 3 weeks ago. Marcus looked shocked. You applied? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Denise gave him a sad smile. Because I was scared the first thing you'd ask was how it would affect you. That landed harder than anything else. Marcus's eyes filled. Denise continued. Classes start in 6 weeks. Steve asked quietly, You going? Denise looked at the letter. Yes, no hesitation. Marcus looked at her. What about everything at home? The moment the words left his mouth, his face changed. He heard himself. So did everyone else. Steve slowly turned toward him. Marcus raised a hand. No, wait, he looked at Denise. I heard it. Denise nodded. Marcus swallowed. I heard what I just did. For the first time that day, he wasn't trying to win the argument. He wasn't explaining. He wasn't defending himself. He was examining himself. He turned toward Steve. I was about to ask how her dream was going to inconvenience me. Steve said nothing. Marcus looked at his wife. I'm sorry. Denise's face remained serious. Marcus continued. No, that's too easy. He stepped closer. For years I thought because I was paying the biggest bills, I was making the biggest sacrifice. Loretta nodded slowly. Marcus's voice became unsteady. I came home tired and expected you to understand. You came home tired and I asked what was for dinner. Denise began crying. Marcus looked toward Maya and Jordan. I told my children their father built this family. He shook his head. The truth is, their mother held it together while I was busy building a company. The audience applauded. Marcus didn't acknowledge them. He was looking only at Denise. When Dad got sick, you were there. He pointed toward his mother. When Mama needed help, you were there. He looked at Maya and Jordan. Every school event I missed, you were there. Then his voice broke. And I stood here today acting like marriage took something from me. He wiped his eyes. I never stopped to count what it took from you. Denise covered her mouth. Marcus said, I mistook your sacrifice for proof that you needed less. Steve slowly nodded. That's it. Marcus looked confused. Steve pointed at him. That's the lesson. He turned toward the audience. Sometimes the dependable person gets punished for being dependable. The crowd became quiet. Steve continued. You keep showing up, so everybody assumes you're fine. You keep fixing it, so nobody asks if you're tired of fixing it. He looked at Denise. And then one day they call you strong because they never noticed you were exhausted. A woman in the audience wiped tears from her face. Steve turned back toward Marcus. Providing for your family is honorable. Marcus nodded. But partnership ain't a paycheck. More applause. You can't buy a house and assume that means you built the home by yourself. Marcus nodded again. Yes, sir. Steve looked at Denise. What do you need from him? Denise thought carefully. Not a television apology. Marcus looked at her. I need my life to change when we go home. Steve smiled slightly. That's a good answer. Denise continued. I want to go to school without feeling guilty. Marcus nodded. You will. I want you to know the doctor's appointments. I will. I want you to know when your mother needs groceries. Loretta laughed through her tears. You definitely need to know that. The audience laughed. Denise smiled for the first time in several minutes. I want dinner not to automatically become my responsibility because I'm a woman. Marcus nodded. I can cook. Jordan immediately said, no, he can't. The studio exploded with laughter. Even Denise laughed. Marcus pointed at his son. Nobody asked you. Steve bent forward laughing. Jordan shrugged. I'm protecting everybody. The laughter released the pressure that had been building for almost 20 minutes. When it faded, Marcus turned back toward Denise. I can learn. That sentence mattered. Not I'll fix everything. Not I'll make it up to you. Just, I can learn. Denise nodded. That's all I've wanted. Marcus reached for her hand. She looked down at it. For 1 second, Steve wasn't sure she would take it. Then she did. The audience rose. Loretta hugged both of them. Maya joined. Jordan wrapped his arms around the family from the side. Steve stood beside them, shaking his head. This show was supposed to be about guessing survey answers. The audience laughed. We done turned this into marriage counseling. Marcus laughed through his tears. Steve picked up his card again. But since we here, we might as well finish the game. The audience cheered. The Reed family finished the round. And they won. But when the board flashed their score, Denise barely looked at it. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about what her family had won. She was thinking about what she might finally get back. Herself, the Reeds went on to play fast money. They did well. Not perfectly. Marcus gave one answer so bad that Steve stared at him for nearly 10 seconds before walking off the stage. The audience laughed harder than they had all day. The family left with prize money. But nobody remembered the dollar amount. They remembered 6 words. I regret losing myself for you. After the taping, Marcus and Denise sat quietly in their hotel room. There were no cameras. No audience. No applause. Marcus asked Denise a question he should have asked many years earlier. Do you still want to be married to me? Denise did not answer quickly. I want to be married to you if we're going to have a different marriage. Marcus nodded. Okay, she looked at him. That means I can't be the only one who changes. I know. And nursing school isn't negotiable. I know. And one good day on television doesn't erase 23 years. Marcus swallowed. I know. Denise looked at him carefully. Then Marcus said something that surprised her. Can we get help? Help? Counseling. Denise had suggested counseling twice before. Marcus had always said they didn't need strangers knowing their business. Now he was asking. Denise nodded. Yes, 3 months later, Family Feud invited the Reed family to record a short update. Steve stood beside a large screen. Y'all remember this family? The audience applauded. Video appeared. Denise was walking through the hallway of a nursing school wearing dark blue scrubs. A stethoscope was around her neck. She looked nervous. She also looked alive. Her first semester had not been easy. She studied late. She worried about exams. She sometimes wondered if she was too old to start again. But every morning she looked at the silver watch her mother had given her more than 20 years earlier. For the first time, she was wearing it for the reason her mother had imagined. Marcus had changed too. Not overnight. Real change rarely happens overnight. He still forgot things. He ruined dinner twice. He accidentally washed one of Denise's white shirts with a red towel and turned it pink. But he started coming home earlier 2 nights each week. He learned his mother's medication schedule. He took over grocery shopping on Saturdays. He moved business paperwork out of the dining room so Denise had a quiet place to study. And when one of his employees asked why he was leaving work at 5:30, Marcus simply said, "My wife has class. Not I have to babysit. Not I'm helping her. My wife has class." He had finally stopped treating Denise's dream like a hobby. Maya said the biggest change was smaller than all of that. Her father had learned to ask one question: "What do you need?" Sometimes Denise needed help. Sometimes she needed quiet. Sometimes she needed Marcus to make dinner. And sometimes she didn't need anything at all. She just needed somebody to ask. The marriage wasn't magically perfect. There were arguments. There were counseling sessions when both of them left frustrated. There were old habits that returned during stressful weeks. But something fundamental had changed. Marcus no longer believed that earning money gave his needs first position. Denise no longer apologized for having needs of her own. During the update, Steve watched footage of Marcus sitting at the kitchen table while Denise studied anatomy. Marcus was holding flashcards. "All right," he said. "What does the pancreas do?" Denise laughed. "You've asked me that 6 times. Well, I still don't know, so clearly somebody needs to learn it." She threw a pillow at him. The video ended. The studio audience applauded. Steve looked toward the camera. "You know what got me about that family?" He paused. "It wasn't that they had problems. Every family got problems. It was how long 2 people can love each other and still stop seeing each other clearly." The audience became quiet. Steve continued. Marcus thought Denise knew he appreciated her. He thought working hard said it for him. But people can't live forever on what you meant to say. He looked toward the camera. Sometimes you have to say thank you. Sometimes you have to ask, what did you give up so I could become who I became? And sometimes you need to ask that question before the answer breaks your heart. Months later, Denise completed her first major clinical placement. Marcus, Maya, Jordan, and Loretta waited outside with flowers. Denise walked through the doors exhausted. Marcus held out the bouquet. "How was it?" Denise smiled. "Hard," he nodded. "Good hard or bad hard?" She thought for a second. "Mine." Marcus didn't understand. "Yours?" Denise looked back toward the hospital. "My hard thing." For years, Denise had carried hard things chosen by other people. Her children's problems, her husband's business, her in-laws' health, the house, the schedules, the emergencies. Now she had something difficult that belonged to her. Her education, her future, her dream. Marcus finally understood. He kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you." Denise smiled. "I'm proud of me too." That answer would have made the old Denise uncomfortable. The new Denise meant every word. A year after their Family Feud appearance, Marcus took Denise back to the restaurant where they had gone on their first date. The restaurant had changed owners twice. The old red booths were gone. The menu was different. But they sat in almost the same place. Marcus brought a small box. Denise looked suspicious. "If that's another wedding ring, I'm going home." Marcus laughed. No ring. Inside the box was a new silver watch. Denise stared at it. Marcus knew about the old watch from her mother. He knew Denise wore it to school. He had finally learned the story behind it. There was a short message engraved on the back of the new one. "Your time matters too." Denise ran her thumb over the words. Marcus said, "I spent years thinking providing meant giving you things." He shook his head. "I didn't understand that sometimes love means making room." Denise reached across the table. He took her hand. She never took back the 6 words she had said on Family Feud. She didn't need to. "I regret losing myself for you." Those words had been true. But another truth became possible afterward. Denise found herself again. Not by abandoning her family, not by pretending the previous 23 years meant nothing, and not because Steve Harvey magically repaired her marriage in one afternoon. She found herself because she finally stopped believing that love required her disappearance. Marcus learned something too. A spouse's loyalty should never become an excuse to stop appreciating them. The person who always stays can still become tired of being taken for granted. The person who always says it's okay may eventually realize it isn't. And the strongest person in a family may be the one everyone has forgotten to check on. Years later, whenever the Reed family talked about their appearance on Family Feud, Marcus would laugh about his terrible fast money answer. Jordan would imitate Steve's reaction. Loretta would remind everyone that she had straightened her son out on national television. Maya would insist the whole thing had been her idea. But Marcus never joked about the sentence that changed their marriage. Sometimes someone would ask him about it. "Did you really tell your wife you regretted marrying her?" Marcus would nod. "Yes," then he would say, "and she gave me the best answer I've ever heard." Not because the answer embarrassed him. Because it woke him up. He had spent years asking whether marriage had given him the life he wanted. Denise forced him to ask a better question. Had the woman beside him been allowed to build the life she wanted too? That question changed everything. And maybe that was the real lesson of what happened under those bright studio lights. Marriage is not supposed to be one person chasing a dream while the other person protects it. It is two people making room for both dreams. It is noticing sacrifice before it becomes resentment. It is saying thank you before gratitude turns into regret. And sometimes, saving a marriage doesn't begin with 3 famous words. Sometimes it begins with 6 painful ones. I regret losing myself for you.